Daniel, thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited you're here. I've been diving into what you've been doing, all your content, and what you've been doing with ReadyRx as well, and your story as well. So I just wanted to thank you for your time, but also your authenticity and your passion for what you're doing. Not, again, we'll dive into your story during the podcast, but not many people, well, I don't know anybody that has gone through hardship like you have, like people around you getting sick, all that sort of stuff, not being able to get the help, and then deciding to take action and creating a company so you can actually provide that help to others so others don't have to go through that. So again, just the authenticity of your business, of you, and your passion really just comes through. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, 2020 hindsight, I would say that when you're going through it, you don't always expect a positive outcome. You never know kind of what journey you're embarking on. And to be here on the other side of that, it's very rewarding. And I'm grateful that you say that. But of course, for any entrepreneur going through it and choosing to make a big life pivot and take on a big challenge, and that never plays out immediately, right? Like it took many years. That it's rewarding. These moments are rewarding because you don't see that silver lining when you're in the throes of everything.
For sure. So let's talk about what led up to you taking action to create ReadyRx. Like, tell us your story.
Yeah, I would say my history with health and healthcare dates back to when I was around 12 years old. My father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and he started having his motor functions degrade. And that was a very difficult thing for, any child, yet, a son to watch, especially he was a very big figure in our lives. And it was, he was kind of on top of the world and we aspired to be like him. And to see someone very helpless in that position is very transformative. So, and there's just, and at this time still, there's nothing that can be done. Parallel tracking, about a year or two later, he was diagnosed with cancer. And it was cancer of the lung. He was told that they caught it, they would operate on it, and eventually, if it didn't come back, if the tumors didn't grow, and they gave him about 5 years, then he would be in good shape and have a new lease on life. They operated, the operation was successful. 5 years later, we get a scan, see nothing. We're celebrating. We're excited. And that's, although he's still struggling with multiple sclerosis, we know we have many years left with him. About half a year later, he gets another scan and he's metastatic. So these are the yo-yos you deal with in the healthcare system because we use a lot of subjective information and pattern matching. And because I've seen this so many times, this is how it must be. That's the nature of healthcare, period. And one thing that I don't know that it's done well and handled well is, well, you're articulating these messages and the conceptualization of that to humans, right? So you can imagine a kid hearing my dad is not going to have cancer. He doesn't have cancer. And then 6 months later, oh, we were wrong. And that timeline that we established probably shouldn't have been established in the first place. So that was difficult. I chose to pursue my university studies in Los Angeles and stay local for my dad at the time. And we definitely were told that he was going to pass from this stage 4 metastatic cancer. As it evolved, he was fortunate enough to get in some trial therapies. And in those trial therapies, we got this other kind of crazy news. Hey, it went from you have a finite date, you will be passing, to we don't understand what's happening. It's not growing, it's static. And once again, party mode. And so we couldn't have been happier. It was an incredible moment. And going to these, chemotherapy sessions with him and going through all of this is tremendously draining. I mean, it sounds selfish when I say that, but it's draining on your family, yet alone. Can you imagine being the one going through it? And it was about 3 months after we were told that he's no longer has active cancer that he passed away.
Mm.
So that's one experience, right? I will say with my fiance, she went to two of the most exemplary hospitals in the United States in Los Angeles, was told that she has a viral infection to go home and that she'll be fine. 2 days later, she effectively was still feeling tremendously unwell, couldn't keep anything in. And thank God we had a friend who was a doctor who said, no, 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 you're going to this other hospital and you're going to force them to get a scan. She goes through the process. They said, this is a viral infection. You should go home. And we said, no, 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 we're going to get a scan. We get a scan and they said, look, we're so sorry. We need to apologize. Your appendix burst. You were septic. This must have happened 2 days ago. We can't see anything. We need to clear this out and get you an emergency surgery. You
All
just told
right.
us to go home.
Yeah.
But these stories, they happen all the time, right? This is the
Mm.
nature of healthcare. It goes back to being, look, rules based. I've seen this XYZ quantity of times. This is how it goes. For them, the logic was I pressed on her stomach. She didn't scream. For that reason, it couldn't be a burst appendix. Well, they were wrong. And it was traumatizing. And by the way, that lasts for a very long time. You don't just like get a surgery, get better, but it is a very traumatizing experience. What I realized in all of these experiences that I've had with healthcare my whole life is everything is quite subjective. It's not informed, but furthermore, we really take an approach that's reactive to healthcare. I'm
Mm.
sick, here's a band-aid, or I get hurt, here's a band-aid, I'm sick, here's a pill. And you never really get to the core of, well, why am I sick? What can I
Yep.
do to stay better? And that was what we embarked on a journey to fix, is really focus on preventative health and what can we do to enable people to live longer, healthier lives, be more informed, and make better decisions. That's the mission, period,
Mm.
flat stop. And it was a big departure, going from working, a job and having something sustainable to, leaving all of that and just saying we're gonna tackle some major issues here. But we're so excited, that we did it, and the journey was a spectacular one.
Yeah. 100%. So again, like you just said, like it was a big decision to go tackle this, you know, big, like what you're trying to change and what you're trying to do is pretty massive. I know there's probably differences between Australia and America, but I reckon they're very similar. And I was thinking about how somebody would approach it here, and just to even thinking about approaching it would just be like my mind just explodes. So, how did you have the confidence, or like what made you again take that step out of that comfortable job into ReadyRx?
I have the most incredible life partner who was so tremendously supportive. That's step one. I had great, incredible co-founders who were struggling with either diabetes themselves and have been subject themselves personally to how the United States healthcare system, the FDA, food, etc., has caused epidemics, to folks that have generally, and another partner who had effectively seen his father, who is one of the most remarkable, was one of the most remarkable human beings, suffer with Parkinson's. And so we were all mission aligned. I will say that there's just no world without my life partner and my business partners that I would have been able to do it. It's just not possible because there's so many nights in which you're so stressed, you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you don't see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, and having that support and being in it with someone and a group of people reinforces why we're doing what we're doing. So, look, I would love to say that it was all me, but I just know that's just not the case. And for any entrepreneur out there, having an incredible support system is the moral of the story. I think it's really tough. Being an entrepreneur can be really lonely. And it's really tough when you don't have those people there to support you throughout your journey.
I love that. I've had many guests on recently talking about environment, and the environment you're in will help you achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And that just goes to prove like people around you is just one big thing.
Yeah, I think that you get motivation and energy from those that are around you, choosing the right people to be around you. I would say that I grew up with abundance being kind of more the priority. So, how many people do I have around me? Not the quality. And I think this is just a human nature thing. As you evolve, as we get older, we really focus on how tangible, how meaningful are each of those relationships, and you really invest on those into those very specific relationships. It's not about what my network looks like, but it's those people that you hold close that will be there for you always. I think this just naturally happens as we age, that we tighten the herd and make sure that you have the right people around you. It's such an important thing. Not only, we look into blue zones a lot, right? So we're tackling healthy aging, and that's not just highest grade supplementation. That's not just working out and sleep and healthy habits, and understanding your genetic markers, but it's also all of the external factors. So the food you consume, the family that's around you. And so I think that as we look into blue zones and areas of Italy, you have Japan, and I think we have some in California as well here. It's really important. I can't stress how important it is to have a real community in your life when thinking about longevity and living a healthy life.
We'll get back to the episode in just a minute. Are you exercising more than 3 times a week, eating healthy, sleeping the right amount, but still not seeing results, or feel like you should be progressing a lot faster than you actually are? If you're a long-term listener of the podcast, you know there's 8 pillars to your health, wellness, and overall happiness. I've even had a lot of doctors on the podcast recently talking about these 8 pillars, and they've written books about the pillars and how to implement them into your day-to-day life. But the biggest question I get from you guys is, how do I implement all 8 pillars into my life when I'm already exercising, sleeping, and eating right? What do I work on next? And that is a great question. And I've actually been working with some of those podcast guests to create this assessment. So this true form assessment is 26 questions broken up over the 8 pillars to find exactly where you're at, what you need to be working on, and what pillars are lagging. Because like I said, you're not going to be adding in all 8 pillars. So finding out the exact one that is lagging the most is going to give you the most benefits and give you the energy, the results, and the happiness that you've been looking for. And the idea is that you come back and do the assessment again once you've worked on that pillar, to keep building them up over time. This is 100% free, and a big thanks to the guests that did work on it with me. I've been trying to create something like this for a long time now, but just trying to figure it all out and how to get it there at the end, but also give you something at the end. So you're going to get results on what pillar you need to work on and how to work on it as well. So I'm very excited about this, because now I can just, every time I get that question, what do I work on and how do I implement it, I can just send you there. So scan the QR code or link in the description, go do your assessment now, figure out what a pillar you need to start working on so you can live a long, healthy, happy life that is true to you. Yeah, 100% agree. And it's not about just living longer, it's the quality of life as well. Like, you don't want to end up in like living for 10 years in a bed, not being able to move and not being able to communicate with the people around you. Like, you want to live a good quality life for as long as possible. And I think
I was
that's the
having a
biggest key.
conversation with someone, and they're like, well, longevity. So, like, I want to live to 130. And I said, I appreciate your view on longevity. That's not my view of longevity, right?
Mm.
It's health span. If I'm tied to a ventilator at from ages of 110 to 130, is that any way to live? No, I want to, you have to be thinking about aging in a healthy way, such that at those potentially longer chronological ages, you're actually cognizant, happy, and mobile, right? And functional. So you're spot on. I mean, I couldn't share. I completely agree with what you're saying, and share your views.
So with when it comes to longevity, like we're talking about blue zones, like community, all that sort of stuff, what are people missing? Because again, like you said, it's very common that
Mhm.
people say, I want to live to 130, but they don't actually think about the quality of the life they're trying to live as well. So what's the disconnect there?
That's a loaded question because we can talk for 3 hours about that. Because it's not the answer to your question is not one thing, right?
No.
Um, if you think about the blue zone specifically, food is a big component. And to that end, a lot of these cultures that struggle, and we have an obesity epidemic in the United States, it's self-inflicted in that we were solving for how do you get as much food as cost effectively out, and as we industrialized and grew, we needed to solve for that. Well, the solves, unfortunately, were not the best for longevity and health, but
Mm,
they were best for calorie intake, and that's what we were solving for. And so we have very stringent regulations in the United States specifically for a lot of things, but we were very loose when it came to food and how that food is packaged. And what does it mean when you're surrounded by plastic? And what does it mean when polymers are touching your skin all the time? And these are all endocrine disruptors, meaning your hormones go all over the place. And you can't live a long, healthy life when you're eating junk. You're
mm,
clogging your arteries. You're putting so much pressure on your cardiovascular system. You are fighting against your body. So blue zones, you'll see a lot of similarity being a lot of raw fruits and vegetables, and certainly some proteins that are not mass manufactured and wrapped in plastics. And, you know, that's kind of one element of it. And you can, like I said, you and I can go very deep into that. And that is
mhm.
one of the things that we do wrong, food, period. Okay. So you have food. The other thing is, I would say, we have created a generation that's stuck to their phones, and the phones can be really entertaining, but how are you going, once again, blue zones, how are you going to get interaction and community and a sense of community and purpose and family when you're not interacting with other people, you're just scrolling on phones for 10-second videos that are hyper engaging. Now, I'm a victim to this. I'm not saying I'm perfect,
Mm,
but we create a feedback loop of kind of minimizing human engagement and maximizing entertainment away and isolation. That doesn't bode what. So, like, what are we doing wrong there, right? We're not investing in and prioritizing as a society human interaction, but rather technological, which takes away from this whole sense of community. In fact, it's quite depressing, right? Like people are seeing what someone else does and says, okay, well, I should be like that.
yeah.
Instead of just creating real, meaningful relationships, they're sitting there wishing they had something they didn't because they're watching these videos. So that's not great for your brain or your emotional health, period. Those are
Mm,
stressors also. So you're automatically disadvantaging your body and brain. These are like some of the concepts surrounding blue zones that people might focus in on that, they continue to be very well studied that are very evident in what are we doing wrong. If you could tackle some of these things, and then you start building in a bit of a healthy habit around sleep and a bit of a healthy habit around small levels of cardio, no supplementation, you're already positioning yourself to live a longer, healthier life and kind of extend that health span.
yeah, I 100% agree with you on the food and the phone or entertainment addiction. Like people are literally addicted to food. Like there's no, like it sucks because the food is,
Mhm.
and the manufacturers, like you said, the rules and regulations are just so loose. They can make it so addictive that people just can't stop. And
It's
then,
engineered to be addictive, right?
yep. And then when it comes to your phones, the same thing. Like people, like you jump on a social media, they're designed to keep your attention and keep you there. So it seems like it's an attention thing, like people's attention. So again, like you're somebody that obviously can see outside the box. You are creating something massive. Well, you have created something massive, but how do you stay focused? Like, how do you not get sucked in? Like, how do you make sure that you're eating the right foods, not getting stuck on social media too much?
Are you asking that question me as in Danny, or what would be my advice for others?
Um, what did Danny do?
Yeah. Um, I, like I said, food was really tough. Uh, I have an addiction to food and it ruled my life. And so I was the type of person prior to starting GLP-1 therapy where when I was eating a bite of something, it could be a pizza or a burger or whatever it was, I was already planning my next meal in my brain. Okay. So it absolutely ruled my life. Now, I will say there are small intangible pros, like my friends will reach out to me when it comes to food recommendations. I love that. But it's all derived from an addiction to food.
Mm,
Um, I will say GLP-1s personally have helped me regain my focus, not have these consistent cravings. And, the way that it's worked on me and my brain as I got to a healthier weight and my day wasn't ruled by food. With that said, there's also, I mean, I would say I did my best to have self-discipline prior to that. So I did intermittent fasting, which I thought was very, very helpful. But I had the discipline, but my brain was still telling me food, 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 and
mm,
you can't get away from that. So you can try your hardest and be as effective as you possibly can. I had a little bit of a biohack or cheat hack, if you will, with the GLP-1s from a neural perspective. In terms of the attention, I think you actually said it perfectly. The second that you begin engaging, you cannot stop
mm.
and you lose yourself. And so sometimes I'll be with my partner, her and I are in bed, and I notice that we're both scrolling, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a reinforcement. But I will say, I've been really putting sticky notes on my screen, reminders on my phone, task reminders to focus on what's important in my life. And so daily, I get these in your face reminders that are saying, reel it back in and focus on what matters. With that said, I've gotten to a point where we're all so busy that we just don't have time to be on social media. And so sometimes I'll miss big, like friends, big life events, and I feel bad about that, but hopefully they'll understand. But I'm trying to focus my attention on and force myself with reminders and best practices, focus on what I love and the people I care about, and that should be it. Those are my little micro hacks.
Mm.
What about you? How are
Yeah,
you?
I was going to
How do you
touch
go
on
about it?
the JLP-1s.
Sure.
I'm a personal trainer and I have a few clients that take them, use them, and I think they're a great tool. Like I said, like these companies, the McDonald's spend what probably billions of dollars on their advertising to get you thinking about McDonald's all day long. So how can you compete with that? Like you can't. So I'd like to dive into the JLP-1s and just I don't know understand what they do, how like should people use them, all that sort of stuff. Again, I think they're a great tool to use. I just think sometimes people don't use them properly. And and again, when it comes to supplements, and
That's
I'd
fair.
love to dive into this with you, like
Yeah.
people, instead of, changing a few habits, they just rely on the supplements or the
Yeah.
hacks and that sort of stuff instead of, again, when you're taking some sort of JP1, you should be exercising, working on the habits, all that sort of stuff, and not just relying on it.
You are 100% right. They are a catalyst and a tool and not your only tool, and they shouldn't be your only tool. When you're taking a supplement, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you can live off of 2 hours of sleep, or if you're taking a supplement, it doesn't mean that you can starve yourself or you don't need a specific type of nutrient in your body. That's not how it works. It's a supplement, it's not your core. And just because you're taking a GLP-1, for example, does not mean that you must give up on your cardiovascular health and staying in shape and your grip strength, because as you age, your muscle will just naturally decline, period. And if you don't maintain that, that's where motor function. if you think about health span and aging, that's where motor function starts to decline, right? And so healthy aging is fundamentally tied to some amount of working out. This is from senescent cells and killing these precancerous zombie cells, if you will, to just like boosting your metabolism. It's at keeping everything functioning. So the GLP-1 should be used as a tool to tell your brain you don't need to eat a plate this big. It shouldn't be used as an exclusive tool of like promoting unhealthy eating habits or
Mm,
starvation and thinking that that weight loss is fine because generally when you do it that way, you'll also lose muscle, which is horrific. So if I advise anyone, and I do think it's an incredible tool, it's you must still always work out, even if that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. Protein intake is so important. And especially when you're on GLP-1, maximizing that. Cottage cheese, eggs, protein shakes, really ensuring that you're getting ample protein, especially when you can be losing weight indiscriminately, including muscle.
mm,
And I would say drinking a lot of water and sleeping, because otherwise you're disadvantaging your body. I think there's the right dose for a person. And so this concept of you must continue to move up doses is also not, I don't think, accurate. You have to respond to your body and what your body's telling you. I do think that it has enabled a generation of unhealthy people, myself included, to have a catalyst to get to a place where we're healthy again. I don't want to name big brands, but there are major consumer packaged goods brands that are trying to understand chemically how can we engineer foods that do not get impacted by the GLP-1 receptor blockage, such that these foods can still be engineered to be addictive for a generation of potential GLP-1 users. So we'll always be fighting this, which is
mm.
great. That's capital markets. That's kind of the reality. But it is an incredible tool and hopefully gives people an opportunity to put their future, their life, and their health in their hands. But it should not be just, this is it, I'm using this and now I'm going to be healthy. So if that's what folks think, I would say that that's not what I believe GLP-1s are intended to be. And I don't think that's a healthy way to use GLP-1s.
Yeah. And I'd say most of my clients that use it come to that conclusion as well. So again, trying to get people aware of their body and health and mind, I do think it helps in that sense. So you ask me what I do, and I'll bring this back around to a question. So I sort of don't talk about what I do because I guess I'm very fortunate I enjoy exercising. I actually enjoy cooking and eating healthy food. I like the act of preparing food, cooking. So for
Yeah, but
me,
what's your famous meal? Like if you, I don't know if you're married or you have a special person, but if you were to knock their socks off, what's that? What do you cook that is remarkable?
I'm actually pretty good at cooking Italian food.
Love it.
Not
Big fan.
even not even Italian in the family at all, but I can cook it quite well. I don't even know where I learned it from. So um,
I
so
love that.
yeah, I enjoy the things that make me healthy. But I was actually having this conversation with a guest last week, and it's weird because now I've got you on. That she is a researcher into MS, so she spent half of her lifetime researching MS and what causes it and how you can prevent it and reduce the symptoms and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really good conversation about lifestyle and again, what you actually do can affect you later in life. But where I was going with that, my story was uh, at the age of 27, I had a really bad health scare again, like to the point where, I could have died. And I was doing what I thought was right. So I was still eating right. I was still exercising, but I was highly stressed. And I couldn't see that I was highly stressed. And that stress was actually killing me. But I thought I was doing the right things, exercising, eating right, all that sort of stuff. What else can you do? And
Hmm.
I lost connection with a lot of friends, family, all that sort of stuff because I was working so hard trying to do certain things. So my question, bringing that back around to you, how do we know what to work on? Like, and again, like what supplements do we know to add in? Because again, we could be doing all these things that we think are right, but we can't actually see stress.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept because A, it touches on blue zones and kind of their stress levels, period. B is you can be doing, I think you're touching on something that's so valuable is that you can be doing everything right, but there's a term that you might have heard, which is stress kills, and it really does.
Mm,
It affects your whole body and mind and confuses your body, and it sends it into a perpetual state of fight or flight, and you're fighting against your body. And so I think that there is, I'll take a step back and say, I want to respond to your demographic of customers that work with you because it goes to stress and understanding what matters most is they're very fortunate to have you looking after them and guiding them, and they're already kind of taking that first step, which is working with you and saying I want to commit. What we've done is built very much a strong support community to help coach, and it could be a very lonely adventure, but part of stress and part of knowing what's best for you is also not being alone in it. And I
mm,
feel as though a lot of people who might embark on this journey are alone in it. I know that I know people are scared to talk about it sometimes. So when you're in a group that is anonymous in nature, but you have the ability to video chat with someone who doesn't know you, you're willing to open up about things where it might, you know, be a little bit embarrassing to talk about with your friends or family. So understanding and optimizing for your personal search situation is very much a discovery with a support system and doctors dedicated to understanding what is happening in your life. I don't think I think that everything from labs, so I'll start there. I think labs are so fundamentally important and routine lab work because it helps you preventatively understand your deficiencies as well as what and abnormalities, right? That's kind of one aspect of this. Two is just thinking about your behavior and being told to think about your behavior is very important. If you're sleeping 3 hours a night or inconsistently sleeping, that's going to be a stressor. And so, as you were saying, that contributes to stress levels and you're on a downwards decline path. Your brain can't process. You are cutting years of your life, period. So, sleep, intake of food, which by the way, with Ready as you're a customer or patient, you have access to unlimited nutritional plans that are optimized for you. But it's really having an ecosystem to talk through your circumstance, doctors, labs, and really assess the whole picture and not just focus on little things like um, when you focus on little things, that goes back to reactive and not preventative health.
mm, mm. And again, like my story as well, like doctors didn't start looking at my heart until something happened. So, like when it comes to labs, all that sort of stuff, like where should people, I guess, where should people start thinking about trying to improve their health?
So Um, I feel like we are so blessed to be living in this time period. It's
Yeah,
such
I
a
agree.
unique time period. And I was on a podcast and someone asked me, okay, where are we going to be in, 10 years? I said, buddy, I don't know where we're going to be in 3 years or 2 years. It's moving so quickly. And when you were 27 and experiencing that, you didn't have these devices and the
Mm,
rings and Aura rings and other smart rings and devices, which actually have embedded EKGs, which can effectively and are improving that functionality, sense arrhythmia, and understand what's going on with your cardiovascular circumstances. And so tracking all the labs was an example of tracking your health in a data informed way, not a subjective way, right? So it's like, how do you get like fundamentally real information about you that's personalized to you? That's not just to your point, the doctor's not going to see it. They might have not ordered an EKG. And
mm,
so they wouldn't have known that you might have had something cardiovascularly, although it depends on how aggressive the doctor is, and it's case by case basis. I think that we're at this point in time now that even old tech is becoming more cost effective, and having it all be organized in a clean way where all of your information's in one place, your labs, your watch data or your phone data, your ring data, and having inputs where you can subjectively input like how you're feeling, help inform decision making is the answer. And I want to say that we're there, but we're definitely going to be there in 3 to 6 months. And then kind of the next iteration of that is this tremendous movement towards protein models within AI to actually help understand and create custom formulations of things just for you,
Mm.
right? This is the, if you ask me where do I see what is the direction that I see things going from a supplementation or antiviral perspective, think about the flu shot, okay? The flu shot, everyone has to make a best guess as to which strains are going to be most prevalent. We don't know.
No.
We believe and we hope that these are the ones. And so by giving you this flu shot or vaccine, we're hoping that it's going to be one of these, and so you won't get sick. That's not very, you know, that's not a very programmatic way of doing it, but also that's kind of the best that we have. And so I think that we're moving in a direction where everything is going to be hyper personalized to you and based on your genetic markers, your predispositions. And I'm very excited to be in the forefront of that. To answer your question, though, I think that there's been an evolution about with technology to help inform some decision making and knowledge that might have
Mm.
not been around when you were 27.
Mm.
I also, what I learned through healthcare is you have to advocate for yourself. If my wife said you're right on the second time, then it's not a if, it is with certainty she would have died. There's no question. And so if she didn't she learned through that experience that we must advocate for ourselves in the healthcare system because she would have died undoubtedly 100% had she gone home that night.
Mm.
It's that simple.
Yeah. And that's scary. That's so
It's
scary.
scary. It's scary, but you have to stand up for yourself and you have to say, no, I want to know why. No, I need to know why. No, like I'm not leaving here until that happens. This kind of no one else is going to fight that fight for you.
100%. And it comes down to you paying attention to you. And I think you just touched on the perfect point of tracking. Like you can't improve what you're not tracking. And that's what I get all my clients to do as well. So whenever they're chasing a goal, okay, that's the goal. We need to track your progress so we know you're actually reaching that goal. It's a lot harder with health and wellness because you can't, well, as we might go into, you can't track it as well
Yeah.
yet. But
Yeah.
I think the more you start tracking now, and like you said, understanding your body now and tracking it over time, when that technology and AI catches up, you're going to have the best possible resources to be healthy. Where if you wait until it catches up and then you start tracking, you haven't got any of the data to give. So,
That's
yeah.
100% right. The more data you feed a system, the more accurate and reliable it is. So to the extent it's not giving you, you're not getting what you need, know that you're at least feeding your future health by effectively providing that data. There are more tools though that are fascinating. Have you ever tried a continuous glucose monitor?
Not yet.
Are you
Not yet.
familiar?
I am. Yep.
Okay. It was very interesting. And anyone who's on GLP-1, I would urge you to try it before you get onto GLP-1 because, effectively the way that it works is it stabilizes your glucose so you won't see these massive spikes. But I say it to go back to stress, putting food aside because it also plays into it, and you'll be surprised by what you think is healthy and how much like an oatmeal, a certain type of oatmeal might spike your glucose. You might have a false perception of what healthy is, and you'll learn through your body that that might not be the case or might not be the case for you. But one of the things that I found fascinating were these stressors. So when I was wearing it for 7 days, there were triggers and things that would bring my cortisol levels up or make my heart race. And it was so evident to me that these things or these conversations or these habits result in me living like an unhealthier life. And so you have data to inform better decision making, even in your everyday communication. So the more data you have about yourself and the more these technologies advance to know more, the more informed you are about your body and all facets of it because we're such complex organisms.
And like we've been touching on this the whole time. Like, a doctor can't give, or the flu shot. You can't just give a broad diagnosis to a bunch of people because we're so individual, and everybody responds to different things in different ways.
Everyone thinks there's like a one size fits all
Yeah.
solution. This is exactly what you do for everyone and it works. It's just that's just not how our bodies are made.
Hmm. All right. So again, I think tracking is great for people. It gets people to pay attention as well. Just getting people to pay attention to these things is a big, like, a big step in the right direction. I think this is a
Agreed.
good way to transition into ReadyRx and how we can use that data to start improving our health and wellness and longevity. So, what is ReadyRx?
We started very much focusing on how do you take subjectivity away from decision making around longevity and how to live a longer, healthier life. With that said, we were actually embarking on healthy aging journeys of our own. And so what we started to do was take on healthy habits, and that was high intensity interval training, um, fasting and autophagy, trying to minimize the likelihood potential of Alzheimer's through, cold plunging and 20-minute sauna sessions. What were the biohacking things that we can do? So that was where this all started. The natural progression as we got really involved and loved this concept of how do we live a longer, healthier life was what supplementation is good for me? How do I get access to that? And I don't know if they're as prevalent back home, but in the United States, we've had this big boom in IV drip or med spas or wellness clinics that do these drips. And what we found was that was the best place to get some of these supplements in a way that our bodies can metabolize that were highly bioavailable, meaning for all intents and hopefully not crude purposes, you don't just take a supplement that you pee out,
Mm,
right? Like your body actually absorbs this. What we learned though is these incredible, potentially life extending supplementations cost so much money. A
mm,
single session was $1,200 US dollars. And then what we learned was it's a completely unregulated field. There was no doctor involved, and they had no reason to have to tell us where they source their any of their supplements from because they're unregulated. So many of them source them at the lowest cost, and they come from like research, not for human use facilities, etc.
oh, far out.
And we were shocked. So
Mm,
the normal person can't do this. And even at the time, like if I had the ability to do this once, I wasn't doing this every week. And these supplementations, they don't work by doing it one time. It doesn't stay in your body forever. They have half-lives. And so the intent is that you must do it on a weekly basis and be routine about it.
mm,
But that's not economically feasible. So we embarked on creating a democratized access to these supplementations that are manufactured and compounded by pharmacies that are very large, FDA regulated, and have very stringent rules around lab testing, potency testing, and understanding the actual quality of what we're getting because we wanted it for ourselves. So we designed this for ourselves. But what we certainly realized with these pharmacies is that as we have economies of scale, we can pass on those economies of scales and benefits down to customers. So now a therapy, which a single session costs $1,200, we partnered with a large national group of doctors who you get doctor access, doctor prescribed therapies for a 95+% discount to what you would get at a wellness spa. But these, you actually know where it's coming from and they're tested and it's high potency product. All of that engulfed with understanding that you might not know what you don't know and that it can be lonely and having that support and health coaching system, having a holistic approach to nutrition. And we have been training models for a long time and really going into how we can take and we are excited to be launching a composition of taking your labs and data from all of your devices to create a one-stop location where we help people understand their very specific needs in a data-informed decision-making way, reinforce those, give them access to doctors, fully transparent, and supplementation that works at a tremendous discount. So once again, it's a all-inclusive healthy aging longevity program where we started off as our first customers, where we want something that you can rely on, that's high potency, you know where it's coming from, and that actually works.
Mm. And like I said at the start, because you're making it for yourself and from your own experiences and passions, like it works. Like that, what you're saying, like why don't we have that already? Like it's so simple. And like I can just tell that it is what it is. Like, there's no, again, like you said, all those other, I feel like Australia's about 5 years behind America with all the trends. So we are starting to get those places. And again, those IV drips, like what are you getting in them? Like what's in there? They don't have to tell you. You
That's
just
the
go in
question.
and you're getting this drip, but what is it? So I can't wait for
I
that
think
to reach here as well.
I'm actually curious, is it also these tremendously inflated pricing out there? Are they
I,
charging,
I
I don't
don't
know,
think it's quite 1,200
yeah,
like Aussie dollars. That would be almost 2 grand in Aussie dollars for us in US dollars.
yeah,
It's not quite there. I think you can get them for around 500, depending on where you go. Again, like
yeah.
you could probably pay more and you think you're getting better, but you don't actually know.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's fascinating that that was kind of what we fundamentally uncovered as a effectively unregulated black market to take people's money without really them having a good understanding or grasp of what they're getting in return.
Hmm. So how you started as the first customers? Where are you at now? How many customers?
We're surpassing, we're over 10,000, but growing at a really remarkable pace. And I would say that it's been crazy to see the consistent growth. And I
Hmm.
think that speaks to the health coach team, that speaks to the reinforcement in products. So, when you take an oral multivitamin, you don't often actually say, "Oh, I feel this," but you're feeling the benefits pretty quickly. And it is remarkable from a energy, depending on the, supplementation, from an energy, muscle, general health, sleep perspective. It is remarkable to see that. But I think it speaks to the whole ecosystem that we built. And you have to tackle so many things, which is making sure that you're truly providing the highest quality of care and that you're supportive, ensuring that you're partnering with the right folks on the pharmacy side, but also the technology that goes into it is really complicated. And that
Hmm.
took many years to build out to ensure that we're creating systems to help cater a streamlined solution that services them in something that's medical supplementation and medical doctor's visits. And we are the harbingers and store all their information and data. And everything that goes into it is very complex. So I will say it feels very rewarding that we're now finally able to, as customers, not have to pay a tremendous premium and actually get the benefit that we're getting. So there is a bit of a feedback loop.
Yeah. But 10,000 is a big number, especially when it comes to, again, I was talking to the researcher last week about MS, and her biggest struggle is getting data of people and what they're doing. Where you're creating this system where you can start seeing trends and start helping people sooner, like before people actually start going down into bad health, you can prevent
Yeah,
that. And the
yeah.
more data you get, the easier that becomes to predict and then prevent. So, is there any trends so far that you're seeing?
That's a great question. So first, and I would comment that it's like month over month, we're seeing double digit and sometimes triple digit percentage growth month over month. And so it snowballs.
Yeah, that's epic.
I think that I want to say that it's because we're incredible. But I also think that we happen to be at the right place at the right time, where we were biohacking when it was not cool. And now it's a verb and people are doing it. And you have the likes of Tony Robbins speaking about it, and it's become an acceptable practice. So we happen to be building a technology that services this at the right place at the right time. In terms of data, I would say that we're still early on in making real inferences, and I would question I would question that because I really vehemently, strongly agree with you when we say that everyone's body is different. And when you're trying to make generalizations with data in large population pools,
Mm.
you're contradicting that sentiment, right? So I think that we're discovering best practices with dosing and things like that, and what is the optimal perhaps dosing and how you get up to that dosing and what's the right way to titrate. But I still want to be very strict around the fact that you have to look at every single customer as an individual. And once you start veering away from that, I think your whole culture and system is broken.
I love that because
Yeah.
it's 100% true. So you said biohacking. When you say biohacking, what are you talking about? For those that
Yeah.
don't know.
So it's interesting. It's evolved to mean so many things,
Mm.
but at a rudimentary sense, it's doing things that are not culturally the norm to help extend and live a longer, healthier life. All right. I don't know if it falls into this anymore, but even the simplicity of doing a cold plunge once a week and staying in there and forcing yourself for 4 to 5 minutes, which has, been shown to help minimize and reduce these senescent cells or dead cells in your body, which can cause cancer and cause inflammation and negative things. That is biohacking because you don't sit there and, you know, our parents' generation wasn't saying, I'm going to go and sit in a cold plunge for 5 minutes because it's healthy for me. That wasn't like the norm. And
Mm.
so it really is a violation of the norm in an effort to enhance a healthier aging process. So, biohacking, autophagy, this concept of fasting for 18 plus hours so that it's not just purely calorie deficit that you're going for, but you're actually trying to get your body potentially in a state of ketosis, but get your body into a place where, once again, senescent cells, you're killing those out and you're cleaning your body of all the free radicals, which are the smog and toxins and plastics that we're taking in on a daily basis. But it certainly also means supplementation, specifically catering towards living longer, healthier life. So, what does that mean? It's looking at those specific coenzymes or proteins or um, uh, potentially cells that diminish as we age, right? And um, trying to supplement them because as they diminish, that's what causes unhealthy aging, right? So, for example, natural decline of glutathione, which is your body's master antioxidant, right? Um, think about it as a defensive linebacker that helps your body protect itself. And as it naturally declines, you enable yourself to certainly get more sick. That, by the way, we call it biohacking. In Asian communities, they say they've drank matcha, which is the biggest store of antioxidants, and other and glutathione is a common word for them. They've been taking glutathione supplementation for hundreds of years. This is a biohacking concept. It's a healthy supplementation. Or as our NAD levels decline, which they do, they reach about half as we get to around the age of 40. As they decline, you enable your body to have more likely degradation of DNA. Your telomeres, which are these things at the end of your DNA that hold it together, begin to unravel more. And it's what causes illness and organ failure and mitochondrial depletion. So, our ability to naturally create energy from food as the NAD levels decline. So, I have this hat on. I don't just wear the hat. I actually take NAD. I love it. It gives me like clarity of mind tremendously. But furthermore, I, you know, I get energy from it. It's a natural source of energy, and I hope that as I take it and continue, and by the way, it has a short half-life when taken as it's a more immediate solution when you take it as an IV or an injection, but it has a short half-life. So it's not something that you can take for a week and say, I've done an NAD therapy. No, you have to be consistent with it, just with every supplementation. So I want to dispel anyone who thinks I take NAD once, I'm so good. That's just not how it works. But that's true for all supplementation. It's about consistency. As
Mm.
with many things in life, that's biohacking. So, I mean, in theory, GLP-1s, right? Peptides, um, short form proteins, that's biohacking. And so it's how do you build healthy habits and also healthy supplementation or meds to help create an ecosystem where once you channel that and complement that with better living habits, right? Like working out, eating well, sleeping, getting enough hydration. How do you use this whole package to help you age in a healthy way? That's it.
It- and, but again, like it's so simple and it's how it should be, but we have to put some sort of label on it to make it seem so interesting. But
Biohacking.
again,
You're right. You're
um,
right.
like I said, Australia's behind generally with the trends in America, a couple of years. So can you talk about NAD plus and peptides?
Sure. NAD plus is not. It's a coenzyme. Glutathione technically is a peptide. They're not, so all of these things are why is it called supplementation? They're naturally occurring in your body. It's not synthetically plugging yourself with like
Mm,
steroids, right? It is actually just supplementing a lack or minimization of natural production of something to ensure that you best enable your body to take on aging. NAD plus, once again, is a coenzyme, and in the body, effectively, it helps turn the food that you take alongside your mitochondria into energy production. And as it depletes, it effectively is what is responsible for what we know to be aging, which is organ failure and DNA damage and the likelihood of free radicals to impact your body. And so as it declines, which it naturally does, you are essentially opening the door for what you commonly think about as aging. And
mm.
so as we supplement it, you try to minimize, you're closing the door ever so slightly to ensure that less of that bad stuff comes in. Kind of that would be the best way to describe NAD. But before I'll move on to peptides of any sort, I'll pause and answer any question you have on NAD.
Yeah, I sort of use the analogy of like as you get older, you can't absorb nutrients as well. So, this just helps you absorb those nutrients so you just don't get as, deteriorate as fast. Because again, like you said, protein's very important. As you get older, you can't absorb protein as well. So I'm assuming it just helps in that process of just absorbing what you need.
It does in many ways, but it's also the key thing to think about here is um, your body, as we age naturally, stops being able to produce these things naturally. So that's the decline, right? Is
Mm,
as you have these natural proteins in your body or molecules or immunocells, they deplete because your body produces, but then it stops producing at the same amount or velocity that it used to. And so it starts your like baseline levels just start going down. And as they start going down, everything doesn't work quite as well,
mm.
including taking in energy, defending against illness, organ function, so forth. So it's just as we age that these levels, these baselines, our bodies just can't produce them. And that's the supplementation goal, right? Is to help offset our body's inability to potentially naturally produce these things and give it that boost.
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. So this might lead into peptides as well. How should people think about taking NAD plus? Because again, like being on social media, you start looking into it, and you just get bombarded with different ways you can supplement it, pills, injectables, IVs, all that sort of stuff. Like, how should we think about taking them?
It's a great question. So NAD plus specifically, you cannot take orally. The molecule is too large. Your body can't metabolize it. So it won't work, period. The oral pills, in theory, where there's certainly some education that suggests they can help with NAD plus levels, are precursors to NAD plus. So they're smaller amino acid chains. Those are NR and NMN. And the thought process is they're smaller. I'll take it orally because my body can metabolize it more and absorb it. And hopefully, by doing that, the precursors help your body naturally, potentially produce more NAD plus. And
Mm.
there's certainly some studies that point to that may be possible. But as we age, it might not be, and you're not getting NAD plus. You're helping your body stimulate the potential of its natural production of NAD plus. That's what the oral is. If you're taking an NR or NMN supplement, if you're taking an NAD plus supplement, you're just kind of taking sugar. Like it's not going to work, right?
Mm.
You can't. You cannot absorb it. So that's the precursors. And then from an injection perspective, because you can pass um, your metabolic function in an IV or in an injection, you actually are creating intracellular ability. So at the cell level and systemically, to get the actual NAD plus. So you're not now stimulating natural production, but you're getting this NAD plus. So you're getting an immediate feeling. So when you take NR and MN, you never have that, oh wow, feeling. But if you take an NAD plus injection or IV, you get a rush. And what does that feel like or look like in practice? I'm the type of person who in the morning, I'm not a morning person. I have a tough time. The alarm, I'm snoozing. It's not a great exercise. It's not fun to be around. When you're taking this, you're waking up before your alarm. You're
Mm.
just energized, ready to go. It's pretty phenomenal. There are tremendous skin benefits that people experience very early on in their treatments. You do have to, as I said, take it the optimal. Ideally, you're taking it twice a week, spread out across 3 days. Half-life is about 7 days. And so that's, you kind of do it every 3 days at a tolerant dose. So on the highest end, it's about 100 milligrams that you'd be taking, but you do it consistently to continue supplementing. And that's how you get the actual NAD plus into your body as opposed to a precursor where the hope and goal is that your body naturally stimulates production of it as we age.
Mm. And I'm assuming that's the same with peptides because again, I see peptide tablets on social media advertised all the time.
I will say it's true for a very large majority of supplements
Mm.
that there is a lot of education to be made about how bioavailable they are and how much um, you actually absorb. That's why if you think about a lot of these supplements, you have to dose crazy amounts because you have to expect that you're getting a single percentage of that to actually um, hit your body, right? And to absorb properly. Sub 10%, depending on some that are more bioavailable, but that's why they have these massive milligrams when you're doing oral supplementation. Generally speaking, things are just more bioavailable when you're doing it, intranasally, although it's more focused on the brain and protective components of the brain, or there are some modalities orally called, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a troche, which is kind of like a lozenge that you put under the tongue and it dissolves. So it bypasses the liver, it metabolizes at a higher rate. But these oral supplements, there are better ways to get supplementation. And as injectable and other modalities are becoming more cost effective, certainly is the way to ensure that your body's getting the benefit of that supplementation.
Mm. Educate us on peptides. I'm not sure where the states are with peptides, but here it seems to be the Wild West. So it's you can't get them legally. So you have to go through dodgy sources to get them. And then again, like what are you actually getting? So when it comes to peptides, what are they and how should we think about getting them?
Okay. The concept fundamentally is they're proteins and short chains of proteins that naturally occur in your body. That's why the premise is, in theory, they should be safe, right? They are the safest of they're non-synthetic medications, right? Or supplements. Now, I'm a big proponent of peptide therapies for targeted specific purposes, but you're not wrong that we've had a lot outlawed. And what people are doing in the States is using They're buying things on the black market that say not for human consumption on the bottle, and you have no idea where it's coming from, which is super scary as you're about to inject something into your body that says this is not for human use and it's not coming from a regulated facility. Our FDA would create a safer environment if they just regulated it in a better way, as opposed to pushing people to products that they really want in a black
Mm,
market, which is unsafe. That's my perspective, right? That might be a hot take. That's my perspective. But they all serve different purposes. And some serve, like, for example, when I felt as though I was losing muscle mass, even though I was eating the right amount of protein, but maybe I wasn't lifting sufficient weights. I got on one of our peptides, which is called sermorelin, and that is a peptide that naturally stimulates the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. And so what that helps do is minimize and melt your visceral fat and recomposition to produce not at a steroidal level, but a natural level growth hormone for muscle mass and muscle retention. That was an incredible experience. I slept better. Um, so they're targeted to do different things. There are many, many of them. One that is tremendously common, but it's injectable and other modality forms were banned in the last 2 years by the FDA in the United States is BPC 157. And I
mm.
want to speak to the banning and at least to the benefit of the FDA, why they're doing, like why they think it's a good thing to ban it and push people perhaps to use black market places. That peptide very clearly has been shown in animal studies to help repair injury. So for athletes who tear muscles, what have you, it helps stimulate blood flow to help repair very bad injuries. Now, FDA's perspective, and it's tough to argue that is, the problem is you don't know if you have a tumor in your body. And BPC works indiscriminately. And so this blood flow, red blood flow that it stimulates, can also help accelerate the growth of a tumor in a pretty negative way. And so we're
Mm.
scared. So at no point did they say it doesn't work. Their concern was the potential cancerous growth components of it. But it's very clear that in the United States, people just don't care. You're like you can go on any magazine and you see they're talking about it, and the only way to get it is black market and not for human use consumption. People don't care because it actually is a biohack, right? If you need to recover quicker or you're injured, it can really accelerate healing. So it serves a really good purpose. And I wish that we get sooner rather than later to a place where instead of pushing people to use it in places that are unregulated and unsafe, we actually just put some regulation around it. So they're, full circle, these peptides naturally occur in your body, and what they do is very targeted, and so we can create a map of all the different benefits you can get. For example, GLP-1s are peptides that essentially bind, well, and you have GLP-1s and then you have tirzepatide, which is a dual agonist with a GIP as well. But GLP-1s bind to your glucagon receptors in your brain so that feeling of satiety comes through, right? So I feel content. Now, what is incredible is it's not specific. Like for me, it was food addiction, but they're
Mm.
seeing it with alcoholism and sports gambling and just any form of addiction. Um, and what they saw was for a very large study, I think it was like 200,000 vets that had been overweight, a reduction from GLP-1 usage of pre-colorectal cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, like so many benefits to it. Um, and as you think about weight and its impact on your body and inflammatory, it's fantastic in so many ways if used properly. So all of these peptides are stimulating things that naturally occur in your body to help uh, biohack for all intents and purposes on a specific outcome that you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. Again, so there's a lot of I guess, people talking about peptides and all that sort of stuff because they take them, they get certain results, and they're like, hey, take this because you're going to get that as well. But it doesn't necessarily work in that way, does it? Because again, we're so individual. But just because it
And the
works.
dosing, and the dosing, it's very
Mm,
individual.
mm,
Like, for example, I was on the lowest dose and GLP-1 worked wonderfully for me. There's a I can tell you how many people I know that they don't feel anything on the lowest dose and they say, well, this thing doesn't work. And then they move up a dose and they say, oh my God. Right. And there's no rhyme or reason for it's not like a specific demographic or anything. It's just very personal. And so I would be very, if you're saying this, I'd be very cautious to be saying, use this peptide and this is how you should take it. And just because I do it that way, if that's what you're saying, then I agree with you. That's not how it should be done.
mm. And I
How are
guess
you
that just,
seeing How are you seeing it? Are you seeing just people advertising it and say, take it, this is how I do it?
yeah, I think it's very similar attitudes here. Like people just don't really care where they get it from. They care about the results that it may give them, which
Yeah.
is again scary because like why are you chasing those results and why do you need to change or put something in your body to get those? I guess that's a whole nother conversation of, you know, why people are doing things and what they're chasing. Like obviously in the health and fitness industry, gym industry, I guess you could say it's very vain, and people think that changing their body and getting your body to look a certain way is going to all of a sudden give you millions of dollars, all the girls, and all the fame. But when you actually get it, it doesn't actually give you anything other than probably less of all that because you spent so much time in the gym.
It's funny because if that you're 100% right, that's the incentive and the motive oftentimes. And the byproduct is you're actually getting healthier, which is nice.
Mm,
So for me, the way I think about it is I don't care if that's what gets you to the gym, so long as you get to the gym. Um, you know, hopefully you can level set and be real about your expectations, but anything to get them to rewire your brain to live a longer, healthier life. I think that's a little bit of the struggle is you're really trying to effectuate change, behavioral change. That's the most difficult. And how do you reinforce that? Um, because if you told someone, hey, go to the gym, you're not going to see immediate results, but in 10 or 20 years, you're like, I promise you, you're going to be more in shape. You're going to be more fit and physically active than your friends. You can understand why people are creatures of immediacy, which I think is why also there's this proliferation around the peptides, is because there's a belief that it's a shortcut
mm.
and accelerate certain kind of outcomes.
But my understanding, it's not, is it? Like you still need to be doing all the right things. You can't just take this one supplement and mask all the other things. Like you need to be doing everything right, and that just helps you get there faster.
It's a catalyst.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%.
Touching on what you said about the 20 years time, like, I've been trying to think of a way to, I guess maybe that's what we can do with, or what you can do with ReadyRx in the future, but just getting people to have that snapshot of what they're going to be in 20 years. I was talking to a previous guest about investing. Like investing is kind of like you can invest $1 and then tomorrow it's two and all that sort of stuff. And you can see that compounding interest over a week, month, year, all that sort of stuff. But you can't see that compounding interest on your health and wellness and your longevity yet, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it actually works just like investing, right?
Mm,
Einstein stated that the most powerful force of nature is compounding. And so you see it in Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, but they didn't get to where they are in a 10-year period. It's by continuing to roll their profits and growing. It's the same thing with health, right? I do think that as you start to see your peers naturally degrading and declining, but you feel better, you do get that feedback loop. It just takes time, just like investing, compounding. It's really small in the first couple of years.
mm.
Oh, I'm only making $10 of interest. Oh, I'm only making $100 of interest. But then you reinvest that and it snowballs. And 10 years later, you see that really start to accelerate in a material way. Same thing. I think it's an eloquent and very well put analogy.
Mm. So talk about the future of ReadyRx. What can we expect? Like, what are you excited about?
I'm very excited about personalized, hyper dedicated treatments that are, based on your specific labs and blood panels and data. I still think that from an AI perspective and where we stand, we're probably a couple years away from that. We also have to acknowledge the regulatory constraints surrounding that and what that looks like. Um, we've always been of the opinion that these peptides, for example, that are banned, while we might think that they have a benefit to them, we don't support not for human consumption peptides or medication, so you can't get them through ReadyRx, and we won't comment on them. Our doctors definitely won't. I'm hopeful that peptide therapy gets rolled back in the United States from a regulatory perspective, where we start enabling regulated use of it. I think there will be a proliferation of hyper-targeted. Step one is hyper-targeted peptide therapies, then it's just personalized. And enhancing our overall team, I think, surrounding using data, taking that data in and creating that feedback loop. What we're doing today, I feel so excited about with offering a very accessible, high quality and potent set of therapies with a tremendously incredible support team that's here for every single one of our customers, high quality doctor care. I think that we're on the right path, and I couldn't be more excited. I think culturally what we're doing is really important, and I hope that continues to snowball, which is making being healthy cool again and all of the habits that are involved in that. And if we have to incentivize that from a monetary perspective within our ecosystem, best believe we'll do that. But I want to help people feel supported, help them not feel alone, and really, really build a culture around being healthy as a standard.
I'm excited for that as well. Again,
Brother.
that sounds so amazing, especially when it comes to the GLP-1s. Again, doctors generally hand them out here. Like you go in, you can get them quite easily, but there's no support. There's no ongoing education. It's just here's this, here's how to do it. Good luck, sort of thing. And again, that's probably like the doctors just know what they know. They don't know the rest, sort of community, all that sort of stuff. So I can't wait until ReadyRx sort of catches on into that industry and can help people like that. I think it'll completely change the way people are like struggling with addictions like food and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
And just to be clear, right now, you can, as a customer, come into ReadyRx, choose to pursue a GLP-1 therapy, talk to a doctor, have unlimited access to a doctor, and already get not only nutrition customized support, but we have health coaches there. We have support groups active. This is live. This is
Mm.
not something that we are building. It's something that's already there and has been, I think, a big reason why people continue to trust us is that we're human. We acknowledge that you're human and we want to be there for you. So that aspect of it is live. And I think that it's one of those things that when I hear people joining the support groups or hear people asking questions and hear that we can be of help, it's a heartwarming experience. Because it's like I said, it can be very lonely. And just having a prescription is not it. And
No,
scrolling through TikTok or Googling what are best practices is not it.
no. And like I said, start your authenticity with what you're creating is just coming through. And I think that's why it is growing so fast and you are so successful for it. All right, I've taken up a lot of your time, but I'm going to ask one more question. If you had complete control over every person in the US and you had to get them to do one practical thing every day, so not just sit there and think about something, but actually get them active and do one single thing, what would you get every single person to do?
Sleep at least 7.5 hours a day. It
Mm.
is and try to do so in a capacity where you have a stabilized lower heart rate. And so you do that by not stimulating yourself as you go to bed. You're not reading your, report that's on your computer with blue light being limited, in your face. You're not scrolling through TikTok or Instagram right before you go to bed. And generally, you're eating at least 3 to 4 hours before you go to sleep so that your body can actually digest the food, and that results in a lower resting heart rate. And then sleeping for 7 to 8 hours a day. I think that one single habit reduces so much stress on the mind and body that just innate, and you reduce your hormone spikes of like ghrelin, of wanting to eat all the time. There's such a big feedback loop around sleeping well and the things that lead up to sleeping well. If you just changed one thing, your biohack, that's it. That's the one thing.
Yeah, and it's just getting better at sleep, and it is a biohack. It will
It's a
help you live
biohack,
a long, healthy, happy life.
period, full stop.
Love it, Danny. Where can people find more about you and ReadyRx?
Yeah, readyrx.com, readyrx.com. You can see everything that you might want to know about us there, all of our treatments, and of course, Instagram at GetReadyRx, TikTok, ReadyRx. We have a dedicated team to talk to you whenever you guys want, even before you're a patient or a customer. And thank you so much for having me. I really
No.
appreciate it.
Thanks again, Danny. I appreciate you and your time and sharing your stories.
Thank you, man.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for being here at the end with me. Obviously, you've enjoyed the episode, but did you notice there was no intro and I don't run ads through the podcast? I don't want to break up the conversation with sponsors telling me to tell you to buy certain products or services. I just want to bring you the best possible conversations that are going to help you live a long, healthy, happy life that is true to you. So in return, all I ask is that you interact with this podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, 5-star rating wherever you're listening. Most podcast platforms have some sort of algorithm now. So the more you interact with the podcast, the more people I'm going to reach to help them live a life true to them as well. Or you can copy this show link and send it to one family member or friend that you will think will benefit from it as well. They'll appreciate you've done that, and I'll appreciate you've done that. You'll be appreciated all over. I would love for you to check out the next episode, so make sure you go and listen to that as well, and I'll see you over there.